It's that time once again. Welcome in, Duval, Duval. This is the Duval Dive. And of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game of the Jaguar Report, ready to bring you this week's action. But listen, the real star of the show this week, especially for all the reactions he's had on BigCatCountry.com, bing, to this week's events, Travis Holmes. What's going on, champion?
Oh man, that hurt my heart. I don't know what to do with compliments. But hey man, it's been a week, man. It's been a great week. Between all the different news between the Jaguars, that's just dropping all the funny stuff that we're going to get into later. Just across the board, bro. It's been good.
Yeah, man.
I'm happy to be a Duval devout.
It's interesting. You mentioned the whole compliments thing. Like, are you intimidated when John Cena does his aggressive complimenting? You know what, Travis? You know what drives me absolutely nuts is how absolutely handsome you are when you have a big smile and you're telling the people what it is. As a matter of fact, the only thing that I find equally admirable is your knowledge of Jaguar content. The way you come in, day out, and rock people's worlds with excellent takes is just an amazing thing.
Wow.
It's that intense complimenting that John Cena.
Wow. I can't even look at you right now, bro.
Awkward. Anyways, welcome in, everybody. Let's get to the thing. Obviously, if you haven't checked out our episode, our bonus episode, our special edition, our first guest here on the Duval Dive from this past Wednesday when we had Anthony Wiggins, T. Wiggs, as we know him proper from Locked On Jaguars, get a hold of your life and check it out because it was a great time. But we're going to go through some of that. Obviously, this week we had all of the OTAs and stuff take place. We had a lot of the pre-draft preambles, if you will. Travis will show his reactions to that. I don't want to give away the entire article, but let me be clear. And this is the part where I look all fancy because I'm about to drop it in the comments for everybody. Check out Travis's article for his top 5 takeaways from Trent Baalke and Coach Doug Peterson, which you can find on BigCatCountry.com. Bing! There you go. You can't take compliments, but bings are okay. Okay, I can work with that.
Yeah.
Fair enough. No, and listen, ladies and gentlemen, all that in mind, let's get into it. So first of all, there's always the readings of the tea leaves, but also everything we talk about. I would remind the Duval devout and just the NFL public at large, it's lying season. Ain't nobody real until the day of the draft, basically.
Correct. Okay.
So with all that in mind, Travis, like, kind of pepper the flavor, if you will. You know, a lot of people at the press conferences were enjoying themselves, having a great time. One might even say that it's a gas. And say, listen, I have to bring it up because even people I respect can't get off their social media about it. Like, oh, look, Trent Baalke let loose bodily functions during the press conference.
Bro, I'm more disappointed at all the GMs that's not out here in these streets letting it go in the middle of a press conference. Like, y'all acting like Trent Baalke is the weird one because this man's out here doing a normal bodily function. I'm mad at all of you other 31 GMs. You don't have that kind of confidence that you can just walk into a press conference in the middle of a question and just let it go. Oh, no. That man has all the confidence in the world. He is about to own this draft. Like, I've never been more confident in Trent, whatever his middle name, Baalke, than I am right now.
Whoa, middle name treatment. Listen,
hey, this man.
I know you're being excited about his being so excited during the presser that he let one loose. But let's not be dropping middle names on dudes that ruined the reign of Jim Harbaugh in San Francisco, please. Thank you.
I mean, who ain't ruined something else? I mean, at one time in your life, we've all made
ruined something.
Yeah. Now, let he who has not passed gas in the middle of a press conference throw the first stone. Like, come on, bro. That man has been cooking way too much, obviously.
Did you just make that scripture? Is that what just happened? I know we call them the Duval devout, but damn.
Hey, the Book of Baalke. Let's go.
The Book of Baalke. Yeah, forget 4D chess. It's the Book of Baalke. Here we go. Hopefully, Jags fans won't find themselves out in the desert wondering what happened with their draft picks. Anyways, it's you're going to talk about Book of Baalke. I connected it to
I know. Book of Eli. I got you, bro.
You know, it was fun. Whatever. So no, anyways, I let's get into this though. The big talk, obviously, and we touched on a little bit with T. Wiggs, but I want your take on it in particular, especially now that you have the tea leaves of the pressers during the week, as well as your writings on BigCatCountry.com. Bing! So let's start with this. I know that the talk has been popular. We could get into the individual players and such of who we think they should get in all this, as we did with T Wiggs back on Wednesday. Bing. But T Wiggs of Locked On Jaguars. Bing. There we go. But I want what is your outlook on whether or not you think they will move in the draft, up or down? Regardless, it'll probably more likely be down. Let's be real.
Right. And
Based, what
that's
did
where
you
we are.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that's where I am right this current moment in time. If they move up, I don't know how much is materially changed, but there are some things that I'm like, I don't know. I feel I might have been at 80% chance, that they were going to move up before the luncheon, and now I'm maybe closer to that 60% chance because, all right, cool. Was it purposeful that Trent religiously on 3 to 4 different occasions, Trent and Doug on 3 to 4 different occasions mentioned that 12 to 13, maybe 12 to 15 draft range, and talking about and discussing moving up? It seems more likely that it was purposeful, like a little bit of gamesmanship going on there.
Lying
Now,
season, blah blah blah.
AKA lion season. However, I don't know, man. Because it feels weird. It feels like maybe they know who's going to move up. They know who's willing to move up, and as far as the draft is concerned, and also Trent, seemingly in agreement with the analytics guys, is someone that says if you're going to trade up, you better be right. But for the most part, he is not a trade up guy, and when he has traded up, he's only gotten Jordan Smith, Snoop Connor, and Devin Lloyd. So you can arguably say he's probably lost more of those than he's won. Uh, Sounds like the kind of guy who's probably not looking forward to trading up unless they just simply have to. And that's kind of where I'm leaning on that. More likely than not, they're going to stay at home at 17 and make the pick and, hope it's the right one, or they're going to move back and collect more bites at the apple, more darts in the throw, per Trent's verbiage. So that's my thought process as it stands today. And it feels more likely than not that Rome neighbors, conversation is unlikely to take place.
Yeah, well, and I'll ask you this too. At this juncture, trying to find the right way to kind of pose this. If they were to move up, the players they would move up to get are kind of limited. Like, I think the point you've made is that they may not even be on the board at the 12 to 15 range at number 8 or whatever. Be it. I mean, obviously, we're all pretty sure Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to stay wearing red. He's just going to do it out in Arizona, right?
Right.
And then, will Romo Dunze still be, on the board by the time they get down to wherever the Jags would trade up? I think all
That's
of that
conversation.
is
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's truly the conversation. Is I don't know that they're truly talking about the 12 to 13 range, but if they are talking that 12 to 13 range, that's a conversation for Quentin Mitchell and Terrion Arnold. Like at that point, you're talking about moving up just to get in front of those few teams who might pick up, start that run on cornerbacks. That makes total sense. Now, if you're talking, the only way they're moving into the top 10 is obviously one of those top 3 receivers, and they have an opportunity maybe between that 8 to 9 range. But outside of that, yeah, that's what we're talking about. But and I also covered all of that in the Big Cat Country article for the takeaways for Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke.
There you go.
But yeah, and offensive line seems more likely that it's, and we've already known that from day one, that it's more likely than not, unless someone like Joe Alt falls. More likely than not, that's out of the question right now for the first round and for even the earlier rounds of the draft, since you have such depth in the offensive tackle, position group in this draft.
Yeah, well, we got some comments here. Robert agrees with us. Won't trade up past 12, so no top wide receivers. Yeah, I think that's what we alluded to. And he says in the top 12, maybe a top corner or an O lineman. See, and I'm not mad at that take that you would be able to achieve that. And if, first of all, let me be clear, I'm going to take one out of T. Wiggs' book. If there is a player that they feel is that good a fit, and they go up to get him and he pans like that, I ain't going to be mad at it. Like, if you find Anton Harrison 2 in this draft, no one's going to be mad amongst the Duval devout. Matter of fact, if you achieve that, I'm already going to tell you, you can cut Trevor Lawrence's turnovers, interceptions at least. No, I'll say turnovers in half.
Potentially, because a lot of it's the turnovers that matter most to me aren't the turnovers where it's the tip balls, aren't the turnovers where it's the miscommunications. It's the fumbles in the pocket,
That's why
specifically
I said
the
what I
fumbles.
said, right?
Right. So you, I would agree with that piece because the other fumbles, the other turnovers, again, that the previously mentioned ones, I think those will just be better with practice time, be better without him missing time, be better without him also being injured. So it could even help with that a little bit. Uh, but yeah, to that point, it's in saying this, in saying that, be careful with the trading up process. As far as Trent Baalke mentioned in the media luncheon, Seth Walder of ESPN Statistics, Sports and Analytics and Stats, basically stated that over the last 10 years, and he had an article that kind of dropped this morning and talking about it. Check Travis D. Holmes on Twitter,
Bing.
posted it this morning. Over the last 10 years, the team that trades down wins the trade 58% of the time. So basically, if you're a casino, you're the house if you're trading down. So more often than not, you want to trade down, but in addition to that, the team that loses the trade normally has a significantly worse outcome when it goes bad
Right.
versus the team that traded up. Basically, so, and all that to say is if you trade up and it goes well, it may go a little bit well, but normally, in most cases, it's not going like significantly well. But when it goes bad, it's going to go really bad. And that's the piece. So again, from both the probability that you actually win the trade and then the risk of winning the trade big or losing the trade big, it just makes it almost always worthwhile to be the one trading down if you have a chance. So there we go with trade back Trent.
I hear that. 58% though is not necessarily overwhelming in my mind, right? Like as far as draft occurrences go. And listen,
Correct.
I'm going to go all super data on you here because if listen, friends don't let friends watch ESPN, right? And I think there's an element where they are notorious for putting out certain stats without thorough next level context. And in this instance, I'm not going after the data and analytics staff here because they have the very distinct issue of only having so many words or so much opportunity to convey the concept.
Right.
I do think it is the statement of it being riskier to trade up than down is obvious because it's a more risky investment to buy a house than a candy bar. I get it, that's hyperbole, but it's a concept of if you're paying more to get to try to, of something you're going to ask more of, and there's more opportunity to fail is what I'm saying essentially.
Correct.
Whereas if you trade down and you trade down and you get somebody who's not so great, nobody's worried about it. Oh, it was just pick X or whatever.
Right.
We were playing with house money anyway because we traded down. Or if you get, Brock Purdy, bets are off. Oh my God, you're a genius. Four-dimensional chess, book of Balky, all that stuff.
Also
right?
true.
So
But read the article in detail. Like I did. I know I'm just giving you the clip notes. I promise you, it's a really detailed article. I actually appreciated it very much. And the biggest part of that is, again, if you trade up and you get a guy who's just barely above average. Let's say it's a win for you, and he's barely above average. It's still not worth it overall when you would have had 3 to 4 bites at the apple, and you could have potentially had that above average Brock Purdy simply sitting at home and 2 to 3 more bites at the apple, depending on what you gave up. So the only time it's worthwhile to trade up in the draft, big trades, and I'm talking about giving up significant resources, is
sure.
almost historically always for quarterbacks. And the Jaguars simply don't need one. So that's the conversation between receivers and such, because you're now talking about doing that for potentially the wide receiver 3 in this class, as good as he is. And I love Rome.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, that statement in and of itself isn't correct. I think it's a what's his word perspective issue with that.
Right.
For example, if I trade up and get somebody who kind of hits but not really, where we're having the debate kind of like you and I were. It seems like a joke at this point that we ever did, but about Leonard Fournette. If you do that versus holding pat and getting somebody who's a bust, it still feels like more of a loss. But moreover,
Right.
you mentioned the non-quarterback point that this pick would inevitably be somebody who's not a quarterback. If it makes Trevor Lawrence a 4,000-yard passer and puts this offense in a position to be in the top 15, I can make the argument it was still worth it, even though the player may not. Let's say it's a receiver that's not 1,000-yard guy, but has sort of adds another sort of we'll call it a Zay Jones element, where you always notice where Zay Jones did good, so too did Calvin Ridley, right? If it's something like that where you get another receiver that has spread the defense and caused an overall impact that doesn't show up in stats, which is all that most media members and fans look at, that's something we could never really calculate. I say we, but I know you could, and that's why we have the show, the Duval Dive, so people can see that. Bing! But I think that's an element too that doesn't get captured. But to your point, those aren't exactly typical occurrences. And does Balky have that prowess to point that out? Or maybe he gets lucky. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, again, it sounds like he was in agreement with the analytics guys, but it was just a funny comment coming from the guy who's every time that they've traded up, it's either been, we'll call it a base hit, best case scenario, to frankly just strikeouts. And that's the piece, because again, I mean, his only successful trade up, what I would call successful in my personal opinion, would be the Devin Lloyd trade when he traded from 33 to 27. From 33 to 27th, and he gave up a 106 and 180, so a 6th-round draft pick and a 4th-round draft pick. And then also got Chad Mooman later, which never made the field. So that was just weird.
I'll say
that was a little odd.
Are those the significant assets you're talking about? I don't think so. And Robert brings up something we brought up with T. Wiggs. If you're going to give up that capital and you get Ayuk, pay him and pay him for Trevor. Sure. I think I'll put it this way. If the Jags somehow land Ayuk, which is a complete and total crapshoot, let's be clear. At this point, I'm still not convinced he leaves the Niners necessarily, beyond a reasonable doubt. It may happen, but there was the same conflict, I feel like, similar conflict between the Niners and Garoppolo. Now, it's not a similar situation in that I feel like Ayuk has a market other places way more than Jimmy Garoppolo did. I don't think anybody's going to argue that, but I get that feeling of the Niners being far more either being honest or quiet rather than putting out, a fluff leak that would alter the way people are thinking. But
because you are someone who's a fan of, lifelong fan of the 49ers, that you might be prone to having a little bit of extra hopium within that.
And it's before you go, it's a great point. Let me shoot that down. I always kind of felt like Ayuk was kind of overrated. Not bad, just overrated, right? I think I get Calvin Ridley vibes from him. Is that he's really good, but I don't know that he's a number one per se. He's doing great with the Niners simply because of the wealth, the absolute damn treasure trove of weapons. Straight up, do you think he comes to Jacksonville and necessarily has that same impact?
I like this because this is a conversation I've been waiting to have with a few people on the socials. Every time you every time you mention something like maybe they might not be as good, all the random trolls come out and it just becomes a mess, especially on all the socials.
Well, I mean,
but I had the same conversation about Snead when he left Kansas City, because you no longer have a defensive front with Chris Jones wrecking shop, and that make that extra half second, all of a sudden you may look a little bit different, no different than Jalen Ramsey had a few plays later with the Rams after he left, and I'm like, all right, yeah. That happens. So I agree with you on the Ayuk conversation, because if you're not a team who's going to use him in that same kind of offense, if you're not a team that's going to give him all of those routes in the middle of the field in the hashes, what the Jaguars historically have not done, or you're going to have a Shanahan offense where you're going to be a lot of motion, you're going to be very multiple in how you use him, well then, yeah, he's just going to be in that stagnant role like the Jaguars had with Calvin Ridley, which he apparently didn't like also. So I can agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, because think about it too. For full context, for those that aren't getting it the way I'm throwing it down here, right? The Niners are elite somewhere in every skill position, at least performance wise. I'm not calling Brock Purdy elite, but he performed. He had elite numbers.
Right.
Okay. Will he maintain that? Listen, the moment Trent Williams retires, that's when we'll see the answer to that question. Okay. So, but George Kittle, Pro Bowl caliber dude. Maybe not the best in the league, but he's damn sure elite, right? Their fullback is elite in use check, right? Don't argue with me about the running back being elite because I can make the argument he's the best in the league.
Yep.
And by the way, I said skill players, even big skill. Trent Williams at the left tackle spot. You have guys that are within the top 5 everywhere else on the field, save one place, receiver. And I'm even including Deebo Samuel in that. Neither Brandon Ayuk nor Deebo Samuel are top 5 in the NFL at receiver.
He's
not
close,
saying they're
though.
bad. I'm
top
not
10. Top 10.
Let me get there. I'm not saying they're bad. They could make an argument for top 10. I said top 5. And they're top 5 everywhere else. You're going to tell me that's not a factor in their production?
Fair.
You know.
And then the top 5 offensive coordinator / head coach. That helps. Yeah, that helps. So we've seen that across the NFL. Everyone who's running this basic base of a scheme is destroying everyone else. So that probably helps just a little bit.
And see, and that's the thing. But meanwhile, here's Ayuk coming to town. He will be a piece in a cog of not great, but above average dudes, right? Zay Jones is an above average dude at what he does. Kirk is an above average dude. And I not to mention a good team leader guy. The only thing I would ever nitpick about Christian Kirk is maybe if he was 5 inches taller, he would be an elite guy, you know?
Yeah.
Likewise for Gabe Davis. He is that tall. Is he fast like the other guys? Not necessarily, but he is good as what he will be asked to do. And by the way, can block pretty well on the outside. Evan Ingram has shown that he knows how to run his routes and be the tip, the graphite tip to the pencil whip that is Peterson's coaching. Again, None of those are negative comments, but none of them are Pro Bowlers, and none of them are regularly producing like the 49ers skill players. Travis Etienne, I could even argue, is poor man Christian McCaffrey in many respects. So,
some ways, but I got
you. In many respects, not every, but many.
I got you.
You know,
I got you. But yes, nevertheless, I still feel like that's a great point, and not one that many people want to talk about because we want to improve and we want to have that hope that it will improve, and we don't see another way that it's going to improve if they don't draft one of those top 3 receivers and it's not Ayuk coming in. And then what?
I mean, all I was doing was trying to supplant the 49er goggles. Sounds to me like you were accusing some people a little bit of a Duval devout devotion there by proclaiming Brandon Ayuk the savior, the thing that would save the offseason. I'm not there.
I mean, there's still the interest that the team reportedly has the interest in it, but it also sounds like that some of these other teams like New England and Washington, who have higher draft picks in that second round, will more than likely be, the leaders in that conversation, at least at this current moment in time.
But if you're Brandon Ayuk, let's be real. Are you that desperate for the cash that you jump over to those 2 franchises right now?
I don't know that it's his choice. I mean, if you get traded, you get traded, but you have to agree to the extension. So that's the obvious conversation.
The Niners want to trade him. I think they want to keep him for the right price, as any franchise should, by the way. I mean, I'm not reinventing the wheel saying that, but something to put rubber to the road. You're going to be better here, and you're going to have a better shot for a ring here than anywhere else. That is the part that they leveraged against Jimmy Garoppolo so effectively.
And I understand, but you also live in California, and I'm sorry. Money matters.
I mean,
so and the taxes in California are way different.
Calvin Ridley talking about taxes, okay?
Right. We're talking. All these players are talking about taxes now, so that's an obvious conversation. And the salary that you make in San Francisco is likely going to be, if you're talking a $20 million salary, you're losing $8 million in taxes. Cool. That's a significant hit. That's a significant difference.
So, and let me jump to the comments for a couple things here. Robert makes a couple good points. This one I know you're going to amen to. Jags need to play more spread. I am sick of these bunch sets. Use the field.
Whoa. I don't think they use bunch sets enough. I don't think they motion enough. I don't think they
motion that you have a bigger problem.
Well, it's mainly motion, but it's also even in the bunch sets, it's the same guys in the same spots. Like, that's my problem. It's like, if you're going to use these bunch sets,
versatility, and then you don't make them versatile.
Right. You only use them in ISO situations. And I'm just like, that's the old Green Bay Packers. That's what got your boy in what the coach in Dallas, goodness gracious, got him fired in Green
Oh,
Bay.
my damn boy. What you talking about?
Oh man, no, because running all those ISO sets. My problem is I actually don't care if they're spread or not. I just want you to be more multiple. Move, use confuse defenders' eyes. Like things that make DBs like me struggle in trying to figure out who to get these blown coverages. Like again, the Jaguars have so many blown coverages and they were almost always from bunt sets. Do you realize that? The Cleveland game. This is off the top of my head. Yeah, the Cleveland game had multiple, maybe three in the same game, all from bunt sets. The
Mhm.
Houston game, the Tank Dell explosive play was from a 3-yard receiver bunt set. Like
Well,
these are the things that confuse DBs when they're trying to play these match coverages or they're trying to play those different zone routes with the motion into a bunt set. So I don't have a problem with that. Do that. Do it more often.
Well, those are all good points too. I would also add, for as much as this team is criticized for speed at the wide receiver spot, does a spread answer that? Like for guys who constantly get criticized for not getting separation, putting them in a spread, doesn't that demand that they get that separation? And if they can't do it, then what do you do? You know,
Well, it makes it easy on the quarterback, and that's the biggest piece. Those bunch sets makes it easy reads for the quarterback. You're running stick routes or whatever else. Daggers.
blindside blitz also,
Right.
helps a damn quarterback. Anyways, last thing I want to bring it. We've been spending a lot of time getting this Brandon Ayuk thing broke down.
Yeah.
Here we go. But last comment here, I got to bring Robert in on because it's the right question, but the exploration stuff. Jags do have top 3 cap space. Use it. You know what they also have? A lot of other dudes that need to get paid sooner than later, right?
Right. So once
they
you get
do
the
that.
Trevor Lawrence contract, and we sounds like that's coming. I mean, again, Trent said all the right things. Doug said all the right things in the press conference, but the vibe coming out is no, this is going to be done soon. Like this is going to be done before the season, but there is absolutely a race, in my personal opinion. There's a race to May 2nd, where the 5th-year option has to be picked up for both Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. And
Right.
obviously, if you're negotiating a contract, you want that done before that date because then that just throws out everything that you've been working on. Now you got to start back over as far as the numbers are concerned. So I do think that there is a real possibility that it could be done before the draft. But in my opinion, that at worst, there's going to be that race by May 2nd. So you're talking the week after the draft
Here's
to
the
get this
point I
done.
would make. Here's the point I would make is if you throw the bag at Ayuk, you better make sure you like him being in that building more than one of these 2 players, Andre Cisco, Tyson Campbell. I can't do that today.
Yeah, but I mean, that was a whole conversation that Wig and I had on Wednesdays. The Duval dive. He thought that you should extend Campbell first because of positional priority, and I don't disagree with that necessarily. It's just that Cisco's the more consistent player, and that Campbell is more of a risk in my opinion because you simply don't know how he's going to play in
But
this
you're
defense, so
answering
you
the
are
wrong
taking a
question
risk.
there. You're answering the wrong question there. You said on Wednesday, pay Cisco. Okay, cool. What I'm then telling you based on that answer is now the choice is if you're throwing the bag at Ayuk, you're saying bye-bye to Tyson Campbell.
I
Are
don't
you
know that you're necessarily doing it because with the cap space that they've now created, they have the flexibility to. And again, most of these contracts have 2-year outs. You have 2 years, the first 2 years of the contract guaranteed, and you may have maybe half of that contract, maybe not even that, maybe 25% of that third year as your dead cap in the third season. So you have that out essentially after 2 years. You can make a way to make that work before Trevor's contract truly starts hitting the books, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, right, because it wouldn't be until after the 5th year that Trevor's contract truly hits. I get that, but if you want to create a situation where you're renting one of them for a year and take a shot at getting back to the playoffs, I'm not mad at that. But what I'm telling you is, in terms of a long-term investment, you want that corner more than you want another receiver, in my opinion. Hey, what do I know? I'm an offensive lineman. What do I know about defense? But
I agree with you. But again, it's all gonna be a risk at the end of the day. But I mean, the Jaguars have already obviously gotten into this void year game and pushing that contract, pushing the cap down the road for a lot of these contracts. So there's a few ways that you can manipulate and make that work if it's something that works for the team overall. So that's at the end of all of it, that's the question: is it worth it?
That's the initial question. That's the essential question for anything in the upcoming week of draft action. Boy, Friday is going to be fun as we evaluate the first round pick that the Jags made, be it trade, be it pick at 17. I think we're going to have a fun one, and we're going to probably tear up the whole episode analyzing that. I'm not mad at it. Travis, tell the world where you can be found.
You can find all my writings covering the Jaguars at bigcatcountry.com. Like we just talked about, the takeaways from Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke's press conference, and also Foye Oluokun and Trevor Lawrence's their presser from Tuesday when they met with the media. Get those updates. Also, you can find me here every Friday, 11:30 a.m. 11 a.m. wherever you get your podcasts, and also with the South Florida Tribune, Inside the Pigskin, the Sports Exchange, pundits. That's throughout the week. But again, that's Inside the Pigskin, wherever you get your podcasts on Tuesday through Wednesday. Talking football all day. You know how this is. Where can they find you?
On that, I in front, Travis Holmes. Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, the Stew of the Game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the Student of the Game. Check out my writings with the Black and Gold Banneret, the Jaguar Report, and the 3-point conversion, as well as my work covering the Orlando Magic with A7 BN Sports. Of course, the Student of the Game podcast on Wednesdays, 9 o'clock Eastern. Find that on these same YouTube channels. And then, of course, the radio segment where you could find this on 3-point conversions iHeartRadio channel, as well as oldschool101.com 12 to 2 on Sunday. That was a fun one. It's going to be more fun next week. Special thanks to Robert in the comments for throwing in some solid questions, and an honor, joy, and privilege. Until next time, everyone, class dismissed.